What's going on, guys? Welcome to your Monday afternoon second stimulus check update. As we approach the end of 2020, there will be more and more talks about stimulus regarding what direction we're going and how much stimulus we will ultimately see. Negotiations will continue. The House and the Senate, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch MCConnell, Joe Biden, President Trump, will all continue to differ in what they want to see. Right now, Joe Biden technically has no say in stimulus, but Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are going to Joe Biden because all reports indicate he will be the next president of the United States. And on December 14th, we will know for sure, guaranteed, whether it's Joe Biden or President Trump. Everybody has agreed that now is the time to pass a stimulus package and provide for those that are in dire need. You may be one of those people. This includes stimulus in the form of stimulus checks, unemployment, state and local government funding at some capacity, school funding, rental assistance, food assistance, funding for testing, tracing, and the distribution of a vaccine, and much more. I'm not going to go into everything because as of right now, those 7 or 8 things pretty much covers everything that the American people want. What we know right now what is needed. We know this. We've known this for months. But does Congress know what we need? And what does Congress have to say about all this? Specifically, what is the Senate saying today? Well, we heard from the Senate earlier today, so let's recap on what was said. First, Mitch MCConnell said, and I quote, "The Speaker of the House spent the entire summer and the entire autumn literally gambling with the health and welfare of the American people. She gambled that if American families didn't get any more relief before the election, her party would expand its majority in the House and Democrats could continue demanding the right to remake all the society along far left lines in exchange for not passing any more COVID relief whatsoever. Their all or nothing strategy backfired." Okay, that's what Mitch MCConnell said. And honestly, the House did pass the HEROES Act back in, was it May? It seems like forever ago. But they did pass the HEROES Act back in May and thought this would pass through the Senate. It didn't. It sat on Mitch MCConnell's desk and went nowhere. Even Democrats in the House were telling Nancy Pelosi this is too large, this will never pass, has too many poison pills in it, which is essentially what happened. That's one of the reasons why there is some animosity inside the House, because Nancy Pelosi did not do her job. She was supposed to get more seats in the House, which actually they got less. Actually lost, I think, 9 seats, 8 of which came from Democrats. 9 went to Republicans, and 1 from, it doesn't really matter, but you get the point. The problem is, right now, Nancy Pelosi holds all the power in the House. If she decides we don't want a bill on the floor, it doesn't show up. It's all Nancy Pelosi. But what we know is the size and scope of the stimulus bill was the reason why Mitch MCConnell did not bring it to the floor. There was no reason for him to bring it to the floor when it was $3.4 trillion and waste the Senate's time, because he already knew at $3.4 trillion, the GOP was not going to approve it. They would not support it. So there's going to be, 45 Democrats and 2 independents. So 47 votes that said yes, and the other 53 said no. There was no point for him to even take it to the floor. This is the same reason why Nancy Pelosi will not bring a skinny bill or the HEALS Act to the floor of the House, because, or at least months ago, it was not enough. there was no way she'd bring it to the floor when it would just waste their time when there's other things they could work on. But now, she won't bring the HEALS Act to the floor because there's a good chance it actually does pass. As far as the $2.2 to $2.4 trillion HEROES Act 2.0 or HEROES Light, that also has a potential to pass in the Senate. So right now, again, both leaders are just playing games. Well, what did Nancy Pelosi have to say about what Mitch McConnell said? Well, let's just look into this, because actually, Nancy Pelosi said nothing. She had nothing to say. She's still on recess. But her spokesperson, Drew Hamill, gave a statement. He sent out an email. He sent out an email to Newsweek, and Drew Hamill stated in this email, for 6 months, and I quote, for 6 months, Democrats have been pressing Republicans to agree to the next round of COVID relief. And for 6 months, Leader McConnell has insisted on a pause while the White House negotiators accused vulnerable families of lying about not being able to pay the bills. I don't think that's entirely true. Yes, so some people from the White House have stated that people do not want to go back to work because they are being incentivized with a $600 per week unemployment plus up or boost. However, lately, I don't remember or recalling any time when the White House has stated that the American families are lying about being able to pay their bills. Honestly, why would somebody lie about being able to pay their bills, but yet you see the food lines? You go to food banks and you see the lines wrapped around the blocks. Some go for miles. Families drive hours. And I stated this the other day. Some families will drive hours just to get to a food bank that has food, because in their city, their town, their food banks are dry. They have absolutely nothing. That just doesn't make sense. So in this case, I think this is false. I don't think Drew Hamill is talking about 100% about the facts in this, but he did go on to say House Democrats sent the GOP Senate the HEROES Act back in May and compromised by $1.2 trillion to send an updated HEROES Act to the Senate in October. That's true, they did that. But as millions of families fall deeper into despair, McConnell's emaciated proposal gives no stimulus checks, no rental assistance, no nutrition assistance, but does give liability immunity to employers who get their workers sick. Here's what I want to say about that quote, or about that statement. First off, yes, that's true. That is true. In Mitch McConnell's skinny bill, this $500 billion package, not the $1.2 trillion HEALS Act, but in the skinny bill, there's no stimulus checks, which I think is, how do you provide funding for businesses and no funding for the people? Because how are the businesses going to stay afloat if there's nobody there shopping, nobody there spending money? The only way they stay afloat is if Congress keeps pouring money into that business. That's the only thing that's going to keep propping it up. So the only way for that business to survive is you have to provide stimulus checks to the American people. That's the only way. Even the Federal Reserve came out today, stated that stimulus checks and unemployment benefits are two of the things that propped up the economy. It wasn't PPP funding. Yes, PPP funding is essential. It's very important. But that wasn't one of the biggest factors. Stimulus checks and unemployment benefits are two of the biggest factors. Also, in the statement, there's no rental assistance, no nutrition assistance, or I call it food assistance. There's neither one of those. And it's true, they're not in there. But here's what you need to understand. Rental assistance and food assistance at this time is not considered, again, this is just based off reports, is not considered essential. That if Democrats had to give in, okay, we will not provide rental assistance, we won't provide any food assistance either, or nutrition assistance. If Democrats had to do that in order to get state and local government funding, they would do that. Because as of right now, what is being said and what is being reported is that rental assistance, although it is needed, and so is food assistance, the problem is if you take money away from state and local governments, then or unemployment or stimulus checks, you take that money away and give it to rental assistance or food assistance, yes, it helps out for rent and food, but in all the other aspects, you're missing out. So if you take money from the state and local governments, the states are going to furlough some of their employees. They're going to lay them off. So they'll just be in the unemployment line. So if you do that, you take money from unemployment, take money from state and local governments. These states lay off some of their employees. They go to the unemployment line. There's barely any benefits. And then what happens? Then they're still looking for food. So it's just a never-ending cycle. But that's what currently is being said, is that right now it's stimulus checks, PPP funding, state and local government funding, okay, unemployment benefits. Those are four of the things that are the top of the list. Even liability protections and worker protections, it's in there. Mitch McConnell says it's a must, but just looking at the reports, some Republicans are okay with not providing any liability protections at this point as long as the businesses can stay open. So again, that's just what's being said. But what I thought was interesting about reading this, okay, is that neither party, neither Mitch McConnell or Drew Hamill, mentions that President Trump offered $1.88 trillion right before the election. And Nancy Pelosi turned that proposal down. Even Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had something to say about all this as well. Chuck Schumer stated, "We need to come together. Both sides must give." But here's the problem now, based on what we're hearing. Chuck Schumer says both sides need to give. But how? How does either side give in more than they already have? Democrats came down from $3.4 down to $2.2 trillion. That's great. Republicans came up from $600 billion initially up to $1.88 trillion. That was a huge jump as well. So Democrats came down roughly $1.2 trillion. But based on the facts, it's technically they only came down $1 trillion. They're technically at $2.4 trillion. Republicans came up from $600 billion up to $1.88 trillion. So they came up another $1.2 trillion. So technically they both, one came down, one came up. But now they're stuck. Where do they go from here? Because neither one, President Trump didn't want to go up because he couldn't get the support of the GOP. Nancy Pelosi didn't want to come down. Not because she couldn't get the support. She just didn't want to come down. So this was still not enough for Nancy Pelosi. So by Chuck Schumer saying both sides need to give, how do they do that? And I think this is where the problem lies. And it's because of Nancy Pelosi's games and delays that Mitch McConnell at this point doesn't want to negotiate from his $500 billion to roughly $1 trillion stimulus package. That's kind of where he wants to stick, to that $500 billion range. So again, I don't know where they go from here. I do know what people are talking about. I do know that there's reports on different things out. But again, where do we go? Based on recent reports, negotiations between Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell won't get a deal done. It just won't. They don't want to negotiate with one another. I don't think they really like each other. So the fastest way to get a deal done is actually by bypassing Nancy Pelosi. And you can do that through a discharge petition. Kevin McCarthy was talking about this just a couple weeks ago. Something that he thought could be done maybe this week when the House is back in session. But he would need the support of Democrats. I think about 15 Democrats to get this done. So if this happens, it won't look good for Democrats. In the short term, they will most likely lose at least one of the Senate races in Georgia, which they need both of them to gain control over the Senate. And I think that's more important to Nancy Pelosi at this point than providing relief to the American people before January 5th. But again, we just have to wait and see. However, by providing stimulus now, it would provide Democrats with more power in the long run. And I think for the next election, okay, I think that would look like it would actually be beneficial for Democrats. But right now, it's looking at this. They just want to make sure that the Senate race in Georgia, the Senate runoff, goes Democrats. That's what they want. And I think that's what Nancy Pelosi is going to try to do. But Mitch McConnell went on to say, the American people are counting on us to finish strong. The American people have been waiting for months for something. So finishing strong is the least that Congress can do at this point. However, there are still reports that the Senate's main priority is not stimulus. It's actually getting judicial nominees through before they leave on recess, which would technically or supposedly be on December 18th. There are also reports that say if any confirmations get done early, any and all confirmations get done early, then the Senate could leave Washington a little bit early, ahead of schedule. Mitch McConnell said lawmakers have to come to an agreement on government funding, on the National Defense Authorization Act, and continue to confirm the judicial appointees of President Trump. But he did go on to say, and I quote, "These are important assignments, but they aren't the only things that Congress should get done before the end of the year. There is no reason, none, why we should not deliver another major pandemic relief package to help the American people through what seems poised to be the last chapter of this battle." First, McConnell said major pandemic relief, yet he only wants to provide $500 billion. He just contradicted himself right there. Now, major could, actually refer to the pieces inside the package. A stimulus check, and just a stimulus check, would be a major pandemic relief. Unemployment would be a major pandemic relief. If he's talking about liability protections, that's not major. That would be great. That's not major. People can get through without that. Another thing, this will not be the last chapter, the final chapter of this battle. It's not going to be. We will be in this for a little while. Experts predict the numbers will still be high until the spring months roll around. It's about 4 months away. That's including all of December, January, February, and March. 4 months. I don't see us getting through this pandemic before that. I think it's going to be a little bit longer. But they're saying right now, experts are predicting we will still be in this until the spring months roll around, and still see the high numbers, because until spring rolls around, people are going to be inside. I'm wearing a jacket. I've been wearing a jacket for probably the past few weeks, maybe a month, because it's been cold. Here in Washington State, it's cold. So, it's not Alaska cold, but it's cold. However, what experts are saying is that even though we will still be in the high level numbers of positive cases, more deaths, until the spring months roll around, they still say the most progress will not occur until summer 21, if not later. That's about 7 months away. So, and that's going to be after the majority of people, the majority of the population receives their vaccine. That's if they receive their vaccine. Many people will not get it. I guarantee you, there's going to be millions, tens of millions of people that will not get this vaccine because they are worried about the side effects, which as of right now are currently unknown a little bit. So hopefully we can see Congress come to some type of agreement within the next few weeks before they go back on break. If not, this winter might not be the worst time yet. It might get worse. Now in other news, Milwaukee is offering a housing resource center beginning tomorrow. If you live in Milwaukee, this is available to you. This center can be accessed both virtually and in person. You can actually go to their building, their facility. The center will have people there to help you find rental assistance as needed. The building will also have something called a Zoom room. And this is where tenants can participate in Zoom calls for their eviction hearings. Yes, this is a real thing. They're actually putting together rooms where the internet connection will be great. You'll have high definition cameras so that you can actually you can do your eviction hearing in the comfort of this room where you might potentially be evicted. And then you have to go find a new place to live. Well, this center will help you do that, help you relocate, help you find rental assistance and different assistance programs. That's what this center is for. And I wanted to bring this to your attention because this is something that many large cities are looking into this and considering implementing this type of center or facility in their city for their residents in the coming months. So just be aware of that. Also, Orlando is offering another round of rental assistance to their residents. Currently, the maximum rental assistance in Orlando is at $10,000. $10,000 for rental assistance, going back to March 1st. Now, they're also considering raising this amount next week. They will have a vote on this to raise it to $12,500. So, you might get more than $10,000 if you live in Orlando. So get all the rental assistance you can right now while it's still available, because once it's gone, it will be gone forever. That's not just Orlando. That's every city, every county, every state out there. At some point, all this is going to dry up and there will be very little rental assistance. Now, here's what you need to know. You may not have known this already, but even before the pandemic, there was rental assistance. There was food assistance. It was there. You go to some counties and they had a small little fund set aside for rental assistance. Maybe give you a couple $100 here and there, but that was it. They were not going to pay 100% of your rent. So right now that you can get it, go and get it. So that is what we know right now regarding stimulus and rental assistance. As always, consider subscribing so I can continue to keep you updated on everything that's going on. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button if you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.